So, I think now we need to go forward with our pitching session, and I would like to introduce all the judges. But before I do that, I'll give you some housekeeping rules about the process today. So we're going to have our startups, and each of the startups going to have 4 minutes, strict 4 minutes to have their pitch, and then it's going to be followed by a Q&A between the mentors and the judges and the startup. And after the Q&A, the mentors and the judges will be evaluating the startup through a digital scorecard that's going to be sent to us while we are getting ready with the next startup. So I would like to introduce today's mentor, and I will start with Gary Stewart. So Gary is the CEO and co-founder of The Nest. And from 2014 to last year, actually, Gary was director of Wire UK, where they invested in more than 185 startups that raised more than $260 million and were valued at more than 1 billion. Gary was also an associate professor at entrepreneurship at IE Business School in Madrid. Gary, thanks very much for being with us today.
Thanks for inviting me.
No, it's a great pleasure to have you all the time working with us in various ITU events. So Gary, around like 6 years or more than 6 years, you were the director of Wire UK, right? And you were one of these like managers of the world leading accelerators backed by Telefonica and O2. It's a huge one. And actually now, just last year, you started to be the co-founder of your own startup. So how does it feel to be on the startup side? Were there any challenges that you might have overlooked despite your extensive global experience in this field?
Yeah, no, so I had my first startup back in 2005 and we sold it later. But going back to it after all this time, the most important thing that I realized is it's really hard. It's really time consuming, and that it's a lot easier to give advice than it is to know how to actually scale a business. So I have like a renewed respect for everyone who's out there struggling and hustling every single day. And I think that the most important lesson that I learned is that being in this game for so long, the network is the key. Having people that can kind of help you to answer all the questions that you may have, because you can't do it by yourself. But if you have a good network of people, that's really, really useful.
Okay, so the network, and it's all about the people. This is what you always say. Maybe I have a very quick follow-up question. So, your startup now is called The Nest, which what you describe as the masterclass for founders app, right? And if it's a masterclass for founder app, what would be the useful key message that you would like to give to AI-based or tech-based startups to take away? What's the most important thing that any founder should have and keep in mind while scaling their startup?
I think the most important lesson is that it's all about the business model. It doesn't make the technology is really great in terms of solving a problem, but the hard part is actually turning an idea or a product or a technology into a business that can scale. And it might have been the case before that people were willing to throw money behind ideas, but I think that for the next few years, people are going to be a bit more demanding. Money is going to be a bit more of a scarce resource. Investors are running under the table in a lot of cases, and they're going to be very selective about the companies that they invest in. So make sure that your business model is pretty clear.
Okay. You're talking to us from London, right? Yeah, but you worked a lot in different countries. You worked in Spain. We worked also in different countries with different organizations like universities and actually Wire UK, and you also the head of Wire Spain before. And just a third question that comes to my mind right now, while you're talking about this innovation and budget and budget cuts and all these kind of struggles that the startups have in their world. Is there a certain like trend or patterns that defines a startup based on their geography, where they come from, which country or which continent, or they're all the same, it's just innovation and it doesn't matter where they come from, but or there's some sort of challenges or opportunities that is linked to specific country than another country or specific region than another region?
So I think that because I've developed like a really huge network, and I'm American, like I kind of ran away from America, but now I'm running back to America now that I need money. I think that what you realize is that like tapping into the US market and tapping into US investors is really key if you're going to scale the business beyond a certain scale. If you look at London, for example, London, I think that they do like 7 billion a year or something like that in terms of money invested into startups. In the US, it would be a multiple, I think like times 10 or something like that. So what you realize is that like there's a lot more money in the US, but then they also require you to be a lot more ambitious. Whereas in other markets, you can kind of get away without talking much about the market size and a plan for how you're actually going to attack the market and capture a decent share of it. In the US market, that's fundamental. They're only really kind of interested in you, I think, if from the get-go, it's clear that there's a huge market and that you are somehow going to be well positioned to capture a big chunk of that market.
Awesome. Okay, thanks. And I think I see some of the I think these are asking you actually some questions about your business model in the chat. So please, I mean, feel free to answer these kind of questions. I also would like to remind the attendees to send their questions, or I mean, using the Q&A or using the chat functionality, and to make sure that it's for all panelists and attendees so can all see it. So thanks, Gary, again. And I think we're going forward with our next judge, and she's Mojan Asghari. So Mojan actually is a serial entrepreneur and an advocate for women's rights, and she's a co-founder of Women in AI, which is a global nonprofit organization on mission to close the gender gap in AI. She's also have advised UNESCO, European Parliament on the future of technologies, gender diversity and inclusion in AI. So thanks very much, Mojan, for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
So Mojan, you're a co-founder of Women in AI, which is this initiative that, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people who works in AI, they heard about it. It's amazing and it's doing a great job. And when we speak about AI, the first thing that comes to our minds actually is, I mean, this gender bias thing that can be in some AI models or data sets. So as one of the most important things, I mean, the gender issue, what do you think about these AI and gender discussions right now? Are we at least going in the right direction, or there's still so much to be done?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So to your question about if we're going to the right direction or not, we can't deny the improvement that we had over the past years and many different initiatives that have emerged, especially companies, you know, they are more aware of the impact of bias, they are more aware of the importance of diversity in their teams, in their companies, in their board members. These are, I see them as advancement. But in terms of actions and concrete results, I believe that we are still far from the needed results that we want to have. And for instance, maybe I can give you the example of what are, for example, the AI products or solutions that we're using, for example, for facial recognition. We saw so many great movements, for example, from the companies, giant tech companies such as Microsoft, IBM, Amazon, that they actually started to put a pause on their facial recognition applications to sort of be sure that it is used for the good and for the good of the society. For example, IBM totally, you know, withdraw their facial recognition activities and so on. So these are, I believe, that are good impacts, but we still have a huge lack in the talents market, meaning that in order to reach the diversity and the parity, we need to have more talents and more, not only women, but people from different colors, different backgrounds, different religions to get into the tech area and being those people who are developing these solutions. So this is what we're really missing. I think the awareness has emerged. That's a really good advancement. Now we really need to train these people and motivate them in, let's say, job offers that we have to be more neutral in the way that we hire people, to be more neutral and inclusive in order to solve the issue. So I'm positive, but I believe that we should not, you know, wait. We should do more.
Should do more, yeah. And it's a great point you mentioned about the talents and I mean the innovation talents. It's to be diverse and to not only gender, I mean gender for sure, but also different talents from different regions, And I mean, you worked as a serial entrepreneur, and you have worked in AI and IT and like in 5 different continents, as you mentioned. And based on your experience, what do you think? I have to ask this question. What do you think about the COVID-19 pandemic affecting the tech-based innovation? I mean, even in the talent aspect or other aspect about innovation. I mean, some people see it positively because they say, okay, people now know how much we need innovation, and it's extremely important now to do things differently. And some people see it negatively, for obvious reasons like restricted travels or budget cuts. So how do you see this affecting the innovation ecosystem?
Sure, Ahmed. So I see this pandemic as a global challenge, crisis for everyone. Of course, you know, tech companies close to the other companies have been impacted, but some tech companies that they had an online business, so they actually had a growth in their business. So that means that you know, they could use this crisis as an opportunity. When it comes to startups, for instance, it's very tricky for them because in order to survive, you have so many things that happens to you. So you need to, you know, survive and have cash and, you know, keep up, you know, with your business. So when a pandemic happens, a crisis happens, either you're fast enough to pivot, or you actually, need to start over again. So it's the truth. But I saw so many projects, they managed to answer to this crisis in a really positive way, and they had like multiplied their revenues. I believe that the pandemic also, I had a chance to be on a alliance called Green Tech Alliance launch a few weeks ago, and we were talking about this pandemic gave us a big chance to actually have a pause and see what could we do in terms of, for example, things like climate change. We saw that cities like Delhi or Peking, they were so clean, the sky was blue, and everything was like so different. And I think we had some sort of an eye-opening moment that if we want to do things, we can really do it. So pandemic was maybe an opportunity for us to see that things we can do that we were not really aware of it.
Yeah. As you say, I mean, great global challenge, but also have a lot of opportunities. Okay, thanks very much, Mojan, and we're happy to have you today with us as a mentor and judge. And we'll move forward with our next judge, which is Joseph Hopkins. So he's actually the founder and the senior managing partner of the Prestige Emerge Fund, and he's a thought leader in AI, authentication, security technologies. Joseph also leads an innovative emerging technology firm that mainly focuses on IP, intellectual property, incubation model. He authored key patents and a lot of work in network security, identity verification, and content security. Joseph, thank you very much for being with us today.
Good to see you again, Ahmed. You look handsome as always.
Always great to see you, and really happy to have your contribution today for us in the pitching session.
Bet.
So, Joseph, you work in this very interesting field of intellectual property. I mean, of course, the overlap between that and digital innovation, digital technology, and you lead an innovative emerging technologies firm that has this innovative IP incubation model. So do you think that most of the startups and tech-based and AI-based startups think about IP, think about intellectual property when it comes to innovation?
It's a great question. And unfortunately, I'm going to say no. I just grabbed a new client yesterday, and I'm sure we're all aware of this controversy that's occurring now with government surveillance when given COVID. Governments are requiring people now to wear masks. And of course, they're doing lots of surveillance to ensure compliance there. Depending on where you are, that's raising lots of controversy. And as you know, one of the areas where AI has really heavily contributed is this area of image recognition. And then of course, because you're using image recognition technology has actually enabled people that are providing surveillance services to actually do a much better job. But of course, as you know, this has also led to concerns around social injustice. And so I was meeting with this entrepreneur yesterday, and he was mentioning how he has this wonderful idea around how he has some AI technology that can literally, it's designed to police AI to ensure that AI is not facilitating racial injustice and other types of social injustice. It's an unbelievable idea. I never thought of it. Imagine AI policing itself. And so I quickly asked him, as I would do anyone in business, I said, well, are you thinking about doing a patent, or do you have a patent, or et cetera? He says, no. And of course, I was, a little shocked because this was a really creative idea. Now, of course, at the time when we finished that conversation, I put him immediately in contact with my IP attorney, and then we got him on the right track. And I think the reason he basically did not pursue a patent is because of two reasons. One, he's very, very busy. So he's focused on more design and ultimately trying to get the technology fully developed. But frankly, he actually was underestimating the importance and creativity of his idea. He actually did not believe his idea was important enough to actually get a patent. And I spoke to my patent attorney yesterday, one of the guys I referred him to, and Paul believes this is a phenomenal idea, and Paul believes this is going to be easily patentable. So I've got a discussion coming up with him actually later on today. So I think we've got some good news for him. I think he should pursue a patent. It's a great idea. And I think entrepreneurs should do that as well. They should be very thoughtful about their ideas, their thoughts, and they should pursue these patents, because if they don't, someone else will.
Oh, okay. That's a great practical example that you just mentioned now. And this would lead me to another question, that if you say no, that most of the startups and many startups actually work in the tech domain, they don't think about IP as the first thing to work on. Well, I would say why is that? Is mainly cost reason, like they don't want to pay, or they want to go for this process, or they think it's not important. So let me ask this first: how important it is to have to have an IP if you have an AI-based or tech-based startup, like how much this would add value to your solution or product. And second, if this is not most of the cases, they won't go for that as the first thing. What are the reasons behind that?
Yeah, yes, it's a great question. So I think the reason a lot of entrepreneurs don't necessarily pursue it is a few things. They're running really fast. It can be expensive if you don't necessarily pursue it the correct way. And it's not necessarily perceived as a critical value relative to all the other things you've got going on. IP is really super important. I think there's probably two reasons why I think high level, there's lots of reasons, but there's probably two reasons why I think it's super important. One is that it allows you to control your idea. If you have a great idea and you don't control it, someone else will love to take it from you and control it for you, right? Look at the example of Twitter. Everyone believes that Twitter was basically an idea that was thought of by Jack Dorsey, the founder and creator of Twitter, but it wasn't. It wasn't him. It was actually another fellow who ultimately was booted out the company, and he did not receive the second reason why you should do IP. That is economic benefit. You should be able to control it, but you also should be able to receive the economic benefit. And economic benefit, by the way, is more important than just making money for yourself. It's also gives you the ability as an entrepreneur to actually create jobs and to actually bring value to the world and society. And you're much better able to do that if you have an idea that can create economic benefit and that can actually provide value for people that are working for you and people that are benefiting from your products and services.
Yeah, make great sense. Thank you very much, Joseph. Stay with us, and we're going to have all your questions coming to the startups, asking them if they have their IP later on in the session. Thanks very much, Joseph. We're going forward with Aaron Schroff. So Aaron is an entrepreneur, startup advisor, mentor, and he has founded and grown multiple technology ventures in USA and India as well. And Aaron is also a topic driver at the AI for Health focus group, which is a focus group that actually was one of the outcomes of the AI for Good Summit, and it's a focus group by ITU in partnership with WHO. And he has an extensive experience in machine learning, deep learning, and also AI for medicine, which is very important today because I think we have a couple of the startups working in the healthcare sector. Thanks very much, Aaron, for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you, Ahmed. Thank you for inviting me. Real pleasure to be part of the AI for Good pitching session.
Always pleasure to have your contribution to the AI for Good elements and components. So you have founded Extend.ai, which is a company that's using AI to solve global challenges in various domains like education, healthcare, in various domains. And whenever we talk about practical AI application, I would always ask myself, which are the domains that you think AI can really hold a great promise in transforming, in being a game changer, of course, in a positive way. So we see a lot of applications in health or education, whatever, but is there one domain or one sector where you think AI can really doesn't have that much, or what? What's your insights on that?
Yeah, so thank you, Ahmed. Great question. Of course, the short answer is AI is going to affect every domain of human, all of it's the kind of technology that comes along in a generation that affects almost every aspect of human activity. Now, when we founded Extend.ai, we had a rather lofty mission of using AI to solve global challenges. And of course, one of the motivations that I named it Extend.ai was, extending human capabilities. So we see AI as a way to augment or, extend and amplify what we can do with our capabilities. So, but when I started looking at it, one of the first domains that we got into was health, because and a couple of reasons for that. I was already involved in a couple of different areas in health and digital health. We run a website called MedIndia, whose mission is to provide everyone with better information and tools for better health. So we were already looking at a variety of health problems. And when we saw the amount of the kind of challenges that you can solve in health with AI, especially with things like medical diagnostics, and the fact that India and regions in Africa have very few doctors in certain areas, AI has a real potential to make a massive difference in those areas. So, for example, the application that we've developed for detecting diabetic retinopathy, when I started looking at the numbers, It's pretty incredible. Like there's countries in Africa where you have a country with 20 million people with hardly less than 30 or 40 ophthalmologists. So there is no way to bridge the skill gap. We need AI, which is why, of course, it's an integral part of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. By 2030, we hope to bridge some of these gaps, and AI is being regarded as the key enabler, accelerate way to achieve that, right? But some of the other areas where I think AI has a massive potential for impact is in energy, optimizing the usage of energy. So we're looking at that as another area. Education, personalizing education and making it accessible to everybody, adapting it to the kind of learning rates that different people have. That's another area where AI can have a huge. But across all of the 17 SDGs, AI has a huge potential. And of course, Andrew Ng said it best that he just like electricity, he calls AI the new electricity. He says that just like 100 years back, electricity affected almost every industry and it transformed every industry. AI is going to do the same thing, and that's a good way to look at it. So that's what we're excited about the potential of AI.
Got it. Great. So actually the same question I asked Gary as well, because you have founded, grown up multiple technology ventures in USA and India. So the same question is, here at the AI for Good Summit or AI for Good Summit or Innovation Factory, we have a lot of ventures and startups coming from all over the world. And have you ever seen like a big difference between startups coming from maybe more developed or less developed markets or countries, or it doesn't really matter? Are there any patterns or trends to be spotted regarding the geography, or innovation is innovation everywhere?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've been fortunate, as you said, to have been, since I was born and brought up in India, we have a base in India. So, the ability to found a company and start companies in India, technology companies in India, as well as in the US. And so I've seen both sides. And so to answer your question specifically with respect to India and US, I can compare those two. I would say that the US is, of course, one of the most mature, most advanced startup ecosystems that you can see in the world, with Silicon Valley being the pinnacle, right? But that has been kind of the model that India has tried to follow. And of course, 20 years back versus today, there's a huge difference in India. Even if you go back 5 or 10 years, you didn't see that kind of mentality in India to create startups, because most people were taking up jobs. But I think in the last 5 or 10 years, that has changed, because people are seeing these huge successes in Silicon Valley, and technology has basically permeated all the rest of the world, right? The other factor which has driven startup growth in India has been the penetration of internet and mobile phones, which has made India now, we have almost 500 to 600 million mobile phone users in India. So almost everybody has access to the internet and to information. So there is a whole ecosystem of startups now happening in places like Bangalore and Chennai and as well as in Delhi. And all of them are trying to follow the Silicon Valley model, trying to create lots of innovative ideas and a lot of great stuff happening. I hear that India is the third largest ecosystem of startups. It's got 50,000 startups. There's some really great, very innovative companies which have come out of India. But so there's lots of differences and similarities. There's a lot of tech talent in India. But I think the primary driver for the primary difference between India and the US, I would say, is access to capital and resources.
Yeah, same point.
Yeah. Bigger in terms of scale, right? So, but I see that in the next 10 to 15 years, India is going to emerge as a big hub for startups. The next big $10, $20 billion startups are going to come out of India. And
great. Yeah. We hope it's a global movement, AI for Innovation Factory. So thanks very much, Aaron. And I think, without further ado, I'd like to thank all the mentors and judges, and we step forward with the pitches. Yeah? So as mentioned, we're going to have, actually going to have 5 startups pitches today. And I can see now from the screen, we're having some of them already connected. So we're going to have from Germany, we're going to have Interlabs from the United States of America, we're going to have Mendel from the USA, we're going to have also Bytrillion from the USA, and have Lens from the UK. And I think let's start with Ava from Germany. So can you please open your mic and video, please?
Hello.
Pleasure. Good to see you.
Okay, good to see you. Good to be here.
So Alexander, as you know, you have your, I mean, it's your time, take it on, but you have 4 minutes. I think the time is going to start when you start speaking. Get yourself ready, share screen with your presentation. And afterwards, you're going to have a Q&A with the judges and mentors. And yeah, best of luck. Please go ahead.
Perfect. So first of all, you can see my screen now, right? The presentation is visible to all of you. I cannot just, okay,
please go ahead.
Perfect. Yeah. So I will go ahead now. So my name is Alexander Stojanovic. I'm an entrepreneur in digital media and deep tech since 98, actually, accounting altogether 3 M&A exits to global corporations. And in 2014, after witnessing really the senseless death of many people by myself, and who only died because easily available information was not made available in the situation, my co-founder Sasha Knopp and I decided to put all of our energy, resources, and also heart into this one ambition and goal, which is to make technology useful for society and for humans. So we set off to deploy cutting-edge data technology and AI for a safe and more secure world. And with that, we created AVA, which is an artificial intelligence and data fusion platform for security, safety, and risk intelligence, but in the physical world. So we're not a cyber technology company, but we focus on things that actually happen in the real world, so to say. So we monitor and manage data on incidents, accidents, and critical events. We structure them and contextualize them to this continuously increasing stream of data so that we can detect patterns and anomalies and send out alerts and predict critical events in the physical world. For that, we integrate a lot of different various data sources, for example, social media, shared data from public authorities, IoT, sensors and camera stacks, but also the feeds from broadcasting media, news agencies, and professional intelligence providers are available on AVA. Plus our customers, the users that use our systems, populate AVA with their own data and use AVA as an incident management tool. And they can also collaborate like with other customers using their own data, making it available and sharing. All of this we do with the highest ethical standards and with full adherence to the strictest regulations imaginable to privacy data and AI. So we're really like perfectly in shape with that. And maybe for that reason, some refer to us as the European answer to Palantir, whereby others refer to us more to weather forecasts, yet not for wind, rain, and sun, but for things like crime, fire, accidents, catastrophes, social and political risk, health risk, of course. So COVID-19 was a very important topic for us in the last months, and terrorism. Today, we are already operational, so this is not a vision. We are real and existing. For example, London City Hall, the Metropolitan Police, uses our systems to increase the security and safety of their citizens. We are working for public transport operators around the world to support them to keep their operations secure and resilient and continuous. And we support very large organizations to manage like the global security. One example, as you can see here, is DHL, but other multinationals as well, particularly in the case of COVID-19, this was important. You will find us in situation and rooms and command and control rooms. You will find AVA in the field through mobile applications. Our core goal, like to do something that is really available for everybody, is still like on our plan, and we're working towards that. And in general, you can really imagine of AVA as being like a universal data platform for security. So maybe sometime in the future, your car will tell you where it's safe to park or to navigate, or your insurance company will use our data, quant funds, all of kind of organizations and use cases that are relevant. Altogether, we are soon to be 50 awesome people in Berlin, Novi Sad, and London with exceptional skills, and everybody really with their hearts at the right spot. And together with everybody from the AI ecosystem, at least those people that we like and we love to push forward, we really work to achieve common goals, which are, of course, also sustainable development goals. So we are very aware like of all of the work that all of you guys are doing, and happy to be part of this global community to drive the use of artificial intelligence for good. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. That was also perfect timing, I have to say, on the minute. So I'll ask for our judges and mentors. I mean, you have any questions, they just can enable their videos. Yeah, I can see Gary's here. Gary, would you like to go ahead, please?
Yeah, sure. So thank you for the presentation. Can you tell us a bit more about the number of customers that you have currently, what sort of revenue figures you have, and really who's the kind of typical user and what are they using it for and how much do they pay?
Okay, so these are a couple. So right now we are working, I would say, like really customers, not to mention like pilot projects and things that are going on. 6 large customers, some of them most known like to the world. The usual application areas currently are for professional security experts in corporations, for example. Imagine the Global Security Situation Center of DHL, which has to take like account and responsibility like for the security of this very large organization. You have analysts there working every day to figure out like what is going on in the world and where do we need to take action. This can be piracy in the Gulf of Guinea. This can be border closing somewhere in the world for whatever reason. And so far, usually like such analysts would use emails and Outlook and traditional tools to manage this information. And through AVA, they actually can narrow down the wealth of information to only the things that matters to the individual analyst. And yeah, please.
Just because I know other people have questions. So how much do they pay and do you have any IP?
Yes, we do have IP. So aside of keeping a couple of our technologies a trade secret, we also applied for patents both in the US, in China, and Israel, and many other places, and really manage like a growing IP portfolio. The usual relationship that we currently have with our customers is through licenses. So our customers make use of the platform by using the interfaces, like the web interface, the mobile interface, and there are like monthly payments for on a user by user basis. This is a little bit different if customers only want to access data to use it in their internal processes or internal structures. Then the pricing is based on a per 1,000 API calls basis. So yeah, like it's the similar way as, for example, Google Maps would charge for the use of their APIs.
Thanks, Gary. Mujan, would you like to go ahead? You have a question?
Yes, I would like to ask you, how many women do you have in your team?
Oh, good question. I think we currently have, I might be wrong, but it's 8 or 9 women. Yeah, yeah, it might be wrong because we are also distributed already now. Even though like we are soon to be 50 people, we're like at 3 places. I'm in Berlin. In Berlin, we have 4 people. Like the majority of our team are engineers and R&D people. We only started to become commercial end of 2019. So our organization, particularly in Berlin and London, are growing, but our R&D organization in Novi Sad is the biggest one. And I think over there it should be like 8 people, 8 or 9 women, yes. Whereby, referring to what you said before, there is definitely still a lack in talent coming from universities and academic field, which are also women, particularly in Serbia, where we do have like our R&D. It is still like a very, very male-driven domain, whereby we see this changing a lot, and we encourage this because particularly with what we do as a company and technology, the question of diversity on all fields, not just gender related, but also culture related, and all the aspects like of being a human are extremely important, because there is so much of subjectiveness in the question of security, safety. Not things that are secure and safe to me do not have to be secure and safe for you, not just based like on who we are as people and how we were born, but also where we grew up, etc. So building a technology that will work for the world in this aspects needs to reflect the perspective of the world. So it is definitely something that we encourage, and yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. I think Aaron have a question as well. So Aaron, please go ahead. And then maybe if I see Joseph also might have a question, so he can go next after Aaron. Oh, your microphone is muted, I think. You're on mute, Aaron.
Oh, sorry, thanks. Yeah, thanks for the great presentation.
Thank
you.
I
have a two questions, actually. First question is regarding data privacy and regulatory aspects. of what you're doing. Since that varies from geography to geography and country to country, are you guys trying to comply with the local regulations in each of these regions that you operate in? For example, it's much stricter in Europe versus, let's say, India or other countries.
Absolutely.
So that's one. And the second question is about the concern of consumers, and the people who are from whom we're collecting the data about, there's a whole a lot of concern, as you know, recently about privacy and data, and consumers are worried about surveillance and all of these technologies, which is regarded as invasive to their privacy. And how are you addressing those concerns?
I think these questions can be probably even answered in one context. First of all, as you said before, there are many differences on whether you do business in different countries in regards of regulation. Maybe we are just lazy, so we pick the countries or the areas with the most strictest regulation and apply this to everybody else. It makes management a little bit easier, even though one might say by having less regulation, you can do more. Effectively, it turns out creativity starts with a no. So if you restrict yourself by, for example, saying we don't want to have individual names on our systems, if that is a challenge that you put also to R&D and to designers, then they will come up with new creative solutions that nobody really thought about before. So it's possible to create something like what we do without actually tapping into the fields where actually we would have to question our ethical framework. That doesn't really make a difference in regards of how it is perceived, right? The question, of course, is, oh, this is a technology company. Most probably it's driven by economic reward. So they will probably do anything that they can do in order to increase their customer base, blah, blah, blah. So, the conversation around the concern of users has to be definitely addressed differently than through legal or through technological aspects. It's really about being very transparent, so we are not hiding. If you come to visit us in Berlin or any other place, you will see, we are open. Citizens can enter our offices and we speak with them, give them a presentation over what we are doing, and try to be really precise over the ethical frameworks and the philosophy that drives this idea and what we're pushing forward. And aside of that, maybe as the last note, we started while Albrecht Commission in Europe was working on GDPR. So I would consider us being almost like a post-GDPR company. So we never had to think old ways in a new way. We simply started with all of the restrictions that were there early enough to be now a little bit ahead of most, but on the other side, I don't consider the regulations and the restrictions that we see really an issue. If you want to solve a problem, you can solve the problem even by accepting what is acceptable and whatnot.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, Joseph, please go ahead.
Okay, very good. Alexandra, nice job. It's quite relevant to the very topic I brought up via my introductions.
Yeah.
So yeah, nice job. I think this is a great business, and I think it'll only get even more needed over time. I think demand is just there. A couple of questions. I think.
Extent, yeah.
No, it's yeah, I understand. It's the nature of, I think, of how things are. I just want to follow up a little bit on what Gary asked. Just qualify again, if you don't mind. Are you pre-revenue or are you revenue? So you mentioned you had customers.
We are revenue. Yes.
Okay.
We are.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Congratulations on that. And yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
As I said before, in late 2019, we started commercializing the organization and actually booking revenues. So COVID-19, how unfortunate it was, actually had a large impact on our business, and also in that regard that the plans that we had for the complete year of 2020, we achieved revenue-wise in the first quarter already. So the company is in a really good shape in terms of proving what it's capable of, but the problems that we now have to face are not really anymore the proving of whether it's a business and whether it works. It is now really about ensuring that we have the structure and the organizational capacity to actually scale this beyond the level where we are right now. So serving 5, 6, 7 customers is one thing, but serving 20, 30, 50, 100 customers was such a critical aspect. The real challenge still lies ahead. We don't feel as if we could relax now in the upcoming years. No.
Okay, very good. And then one last question. Again, congratulations. I think this is a tough economic environment, and it sounds like you guys are really on the right track. Really, the last question, I know we've got to get moving on to the next presenter, is around your business model. Looks like you have mobile app. So are you attempting to sell to both consumer as well as to enterprise? On the enterprise, is that more of like an OEM system integration type model?
So we chose for different regions in the world, different strategies. So I would say like in the developed world, saying Europe, US, we don't think it would be wise for us to come up like with an app. It's much smarter to go like to be embedded like into existing ecosystems so that we don't have to compete on the app store like with Angry Birds and Fruit Ninja. Whereby I think like in other regions of the world, we might come up like with a mobile app for end users. The mobile app that we are deploying right now are for security field forces and professionals. So for police officers or security staff that actually need to go somewhere, need to be in constant contact with the security situation center. So this mobile app is rather also like for governments or for business customers.
Okay, great. So it sounds like you're focused on businesses, enterprises, large, small, and more OEM and system integration. Okay, Thank you. Nice job again.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joseph. Mojan, you have a very quick question, please, because of the time. Just a quick one.
Yeah, I just wanted to, because we mentioned the police office and everything, and we heard about the recent racism towards we heard about it, and the applications using the data can sometimes augment the devices we have. I just was curious that are you working with police and authorities? Are you selling it to them? And if yes, how do you manage to make sure that it's not biased?
So we work with governments and with police. So we on the other side do not do everything that a potential customer or customer wants from us. So whenever we talk about things that are related like to identifying individuals, understanding organizational networks of, for example, street gangs, who is responsible for whom. And there are many, many different companies working in this field. For us, it's really more about the fabric of understanding information, making information flow. So the decision how a security department of a corporation, the mayor of a city, or the individual police officer is reacting is not something that we are driving through AVA. We are providing information. Hopefully, this information will help to make better decisions. But the actual procedures, the actual perspectives and that the individual using our system is having, we cannot necessarily influence. And I think we would have it very hard if we as a technology company would try to go beyond giving advice and sharing our rather humanistic perspective on these kind of things. So we say, like data is something that should be supporting all of society, not just specific groups. And we all have a very, very long way to go to ensure that power is not used in the wrong way, and maybe through democratizing part of this power, because even technology was responsible for us even becoming aware of what happened in the US, for example, with Mr. Floyd. We probably would never have heard that if there weren't smartphones, if people haven't recorded that, if put it like on social media. So this has two sides of that equation, and we are very aware of it, but we will need help of everybody, like fighting like for the same cause. The technology will be used for good and not for bad. I hope this answers it as short as possible, because this is probably like a discussion for a long evening with a lot of white wine. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Alexander. Thanks, Mojan. Thanks, everyone. I think we should move forward with our next pitch. And it's going to be, thank you very much, pleasure. So it's going to be Interlabs from the USA. So Interlabs, are you ready, Dev? Please enable your mic and video. Yes, you can see the screen being shared, very visible. I can also see you. So please go ahead. You have your 4 minutes, and then we're gonna follow up by Q&A. Also, I would like to remind the judges and mentors to use digital scorecards for the previous pitch to score Ava. Thank you very much. And the timer is gonna start with you, Dev, when you start speaking. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Hi, good morning and good afternoon to everyone, wherever you are. I'm Devendra, co-founder for Untitled Labs, and we are doing quality assessment for fresh produce in a scalable, non-destructive, and low-cost manner using handphones as the quality assessment tool. We all know that more than a third of fresh produce is lost today. Whatever we are growing, only 2/3 of that is being consumed. And on the flip side, more than 40% of the population does not have food available to them. Now, in such a market, we would assume that the growers would be getting high price, but they only get 10 cents on a dollar, which is being sold. A lot of governments have taken efforts to set up prices where they are ensuring that the growers get a better price for their produce, but it still is based on a fair average quality. There is no premium which is paid to any grower across the world for prices. That's primarily because the whole quality management system or the quality assessment system is manual today. The biggest of the food organizations have got a person who would visually go through the lot and then give his assessment saying this is good or this is bad. You can argue saying that there are processes and there are metrics against which things are, against which the lots are scored. But if the metrics is like tomatoes should be uniformly red in color, how do you bring in any objectivity into it? What you may perceive as a uniform red color would be very different from what I perceive as a uniform red color, and definitely very different from what my food perceive as a uniform red color, right? So in such a case, it is very difficult for any organization, any government to pay premium for quality prices, and which is why a lot of farmers are today moving away from farming, because no matter how much they spend and they're all sweat and all, they still get regular market prices. So this is where our solution comes in. It is very simple. You use your handphone, capture an image of the sample, which is primarily fresh produce. It could be played out in any way. You need not play out in a particular manner on a tray or anyways. It could be in a tote, in a crate, in a box, on a heap, whichever way. And then our algorithm would read that image. It would then give you the quality results of the sample. Not only it would give you how many are good, how many are bad, which is classification into grade A, grade B, and grade C, but it would also give you each and individual defect which you can find out. And then all that data is collated and presented as a quality dashboard, which can be used to mine actions in insights and trends around those. All this is backed by verifiable images and defect logs. For example, you could see here that in the whole image, you can see how many are bruised, how many are decayed, right-shouldered. And when you are looking at that data over a period of time, you can start finding out trends, that what is wrong in my supply chain, what are the defects, and where are those defects getting introduced, and how can I move ahead. Using this technology, we've helped our clients, which are primarily food organizations like retailers, traders, aggregators, distributors, reduce wrong purchases by about 15%. Essentially, it means that they were buying produce which was not meeting their quality criteria, which was leading to losses, which was leading to rejection, which was leading to dump across, and then those have been reduced, and now and also the dump which they used to throw away at the end of the day, we help them reduce by about 30%. So that's that's direct saving not only to them but also saving of food produce which can be used elsewhere across. Apart from that, there are a couple of other key impacts which we say. The first one is we've enabled a lot of our clients to start giving premium for pricing. For example, one of our we've introduced for online auctions of cardamom, we have introduced quality criteria. Close to 70% of India's cardamom is now gauged through our systems. And we've seen that for the same comparable lot today, growers are getting more. 30% of growers are getting about 18% higher price realization than what they were getting about a year ago, primarily because of quality being digital. And now there are bits which can happen across the place, and the buyer is now more armed to look at cardamom quality. Similarly, for one of the berry majors, their accuracy of assessment was around 70% when benchmarked. Today, using our system, it is up to 92%. And they are now able to pay better premiums to the growers and give them incentives to bring in better berries, matured berries, which
sorry, Dave, you have to wrap up quickly because of the time, please.
Sure. Similarly, we helped the Indian retailer start premium pricing from the growers. The team, we've got a team which has got experience in data science, agri, and computer vision. And we are the biggest company which has got the highest database for fresh produce. We are the only ones which are looking at 45 different commodities. And we are well funded by various VC partners, and we raised our last funding last month.
Thank you, Dave. I think you can have more clarification during the Q&A, so that's fine. But just to be fair to everyone with the time. So
yep,
for the judges and mentors, any Q&A anyone wants to ask? Yeah, we have Mojan ready, so please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for your presentation. I didn't get. I'm not sure quite if I got. Who is your main customer? Is it the mass purchasers, like the big retailers? Or are they normal people who are using your app at this shop? I didn't understand it.
Right. So primarily, we are in a B2B kind of an environment where all the food organizations, like I said, retailers, aggregators, distributors, traders, they all are our consumers who are doing quality checks on a mass level.
Okay, so it's basically a professional app. It's not B2C.
Right. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. So my question is a follow-up, which is how much does it cost your average customer, and how long does it take for them to pay back, the cost? Because I'm assuming that, like, right now, as you said, it's low margin. They can just get people to do it manually, very cheaply, and I'm not sure how much it costs and when they see a return. So can you maybe walk us through that?
Right. So we are essentially charging on a service basis. The number of commodities, number of installations, there's a monthly price for that. Like I said, we've helped organizations reduce their dump by about 30%. On an average, let's say a retailer has got about 6% dump, which is down by 2%. So that's a straight 2% added to their bottom line. So if you're buying 100 kgs, you're throwing away 6 kgs, and now you're saving 2 kgs of that. So that's the kind of ROI we are seeing. We've seen returns on these.
Sorry. Just because I don't really understand like fruit and stuff like that, if you can put that into money, that would be great. So how much does it cost in money, and how long does it take for me to kind of pay this back based on the savings?
Right. So in terms of money, it is anywhere between $100 to $200 per commodity per month kind of a basis, in that range. And in terms of returns, we've seen our clients realizing returns as early as 10 to 12 months.
Sorry, last follow-up. And how many clients do you have? And how much revenue generated?
Right. So today we are working with close to 12 different clients, which are retailers, growers, and traders. And in terms of money, we're close to an ARR of about $1 million.
Hi, Dave. Great presentation. Really like the use case, especially, it's very well aligned with the SDGs in some way. It can reduce food wastage. But I have a couple of questions. So one is, are you doing this at each point in the supply chain, or are you just doing it at one point, or, at multiple points, right? And the other one is, of course, its impact on jobs at the grower level. How do you see that? How do you see your solution impacting jobs? And also, one last question is, there's a lot of competition in the space from what I know. There's quite a few companies. I think, in fact, in one of the earlier pitch sessions, there was another company, if I'm not mistaken, which is based in the US, which seems to be in the same space. So what's your main differentiation in terms of your product, and why should somebody buy your product versus somebody else's?
Okay, so I'll take it in that order. The first one was around the supply chain. So we've been doing this for about 2.5 years now. We primarily started with the consumer-facing organization because they were the ones who were facing had a high cost of quality, and today it's being used across the supply chain. Let's say for a retailer, it's being used at their warehouses, at their stores, as well as their purchasing centers. This is being used by the aggregators who supply to the retailers, and this is also being used by the traders who are purchasing in wholesale. So now today, the solution is being applied across the supply chain. In terms of jobs, it's not about taking somebody's job, or it's not reducing jobs, but it's about enabling the whole quality system with a tool which helps them take the quality in an objective manner, right? For example, if you look at it, if I am a quality inspector, I have to look at a truck full of truckload of berries which has come in, which has got about 50 boxes. Each box has about 100 clamshells into it. as per the standard sampling, I have to look at about 60, 70 boxes into it, which is not possible. So I'll look at only about 4 or 5 different boxes. Each box or each crate would take me about 10 to 15 minutes. So I'm reducing that time from 15 minutes to about 3 minutes now. So I'm helping them do this job more quickly in an objective manner. And instead of writing reports, all the data is getting automatically captured. So it's more a tool which is helping them do their job in an objective manner, capture the data, as well as ensure that the data is captured at the lowest level and is being used at a lowest level, so that people can take more informed decisions. Right? So you'll still require the quality team to take that informed decisions onto that. It's finally onto the part in terms of competition. I think we are the only ones which is focusing on fresh produce. We've got the breadth of solution in terms of 45 different commodities, and we are the only ones which are using hand phones as one of the primary means. A lot of competition is using different machines, boxes, which what it does is it standardizes your image taking condition, it standardizes the lighting, it standardizes all the other external parameters, which makes it very difficult to scale. I mean, if you've got a 40,000 box, it's very difficult to scale and apply it at 100 different procurement points.
All right, great, thanks.
I have less than 30 seconds for the question, so I think we can go quickly with Joseph, and then we go back to Mojin, because I'm a gentleman you already asked. So Joseph would ask a question, and then we go back with you if you have time. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Nice presentation. Just a couple of quick questions. When did you start your business? And then secondly, what is your targeted geographical reach? So I'd like to get a sense in terms of where are you doing business today? Give me a perspective on that.
So we started about 2.5 years back. One of our biggest clients is Reliance Retail, which we started about 2.5 years back, the whole development of the solution. They've got 1,100 stores. And in terms of geographic reach, we started out of India. That's where we are based. And then over the last year, we've started working in Southeast Asia, China, and now we've also got a couple of clients in the United States.
Okay, you mentioned, I think you had 12 customers or so, I think you said.
Right, yeah.
Okay, so a few in the US, the majority of them outside the US.
Outside the US, yes.
Very good, thank you.
Do I still have time to ask a quick question, Ahmed?
Quick, yes, please.
Yeah, I just want to know, what is the precision of your model, the image recognition? How precise is it?
Right. So that's a very interesting question, because, like I said, there is a very difficult ways to compare it with. The human manual grading itself is about at 70% accuracy. But if you look at in a benchmark condition with the experts as well as with laboratories, we are at between 92 to 97% accuracy levels, depending upon what kind of commodities we are working with.
Okay, so your precision, you say, is 93% accuracy?
Yeah, 92 to 97% accuracy for different commodities.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for everyone. Thanks, Dev, very much. It was great, and good answers to all the questions.
Thank you.
I think we'll move forward with our next pitch, which is Mendel from USA. So I think Shafiq should be connected. Yes, we can see you, and I hope we can hear you. Can you please speak?
Sure. Hi.
Yes. Good. So please feel free to share your presentation and go ahead, and we're going to have the timer on the moment you start speaking.
Are you able to see my screen?
Nope. Just share the screen again, please. Yes, now it's working. Just put it on a slideshow and please start. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Shafiq Punja. I'm a previous co-founder and currently the chief of staff at Mendel. I'm delighted to be able to present Mendel. We're founded in 2018. We currently have 50 full-time employees. We're based in San Jose, California, with a satellite office in Cairo, Egypt. We're backed by DCM, which is a blue chip VC based in the Silicon Valley with over 4 billion in capital, focused on oncology. And we're recently featured by Deloitte as one of the 6 unique case studies for AI-powered research. Our team, our 2 co-founders, is Dr. Karim Galil with an MD and Dr. Wael Saloom with over 15 years of AI experience was previously funded by DARPA multiple times, has 15 years of AI experience in the healthcare domain, and my esteemed fellow colleagues.
Sorry, Shafiq, I have to interrupt. I think you're not putting it on a slideshow, so we cannot see the presentation on a slideshow. Just make sure that you put the slideshow screen to be shared, not the presentation itself.
Sure. Are you able to see that now?
No, we see the presentation, the slides, but we don't see the slideshow. So maybe with your cursor, try to click on the slideshow button or F5, or make sure that you are sharing the slideshow screen.
Sure. Give me just 1 second. Sorry.
Yeah, sure. That's okay.
Okay. Any better?
I'm waiting. Yes, now it works.
Okay, great. Sorry about that.
Please go ahead. No, it's okay. It's fine.
Today's options for data are currently in the medical space very primitive. So on one side, you have structured data, which oftentimes is very superficial, where it does not capture certain important and extremely relevant information. For example, things like staging of cancer and being able to look at things like PDFs and scanned documents are often missed when looking solely at structured data. Other options for being able to look through data are normally involving the human abstraction or human curation of data. This is extremely slow, expensive, and very difficult to scale. For example, it takes about $1 million and 27,000 man-hours to be able to curate about 50,000 patients. The last option is AI with very low clinical validity. And this requires heavy corrections by humans and experts to a point where human curation is oftentimes seen as actually a better option. What we've done is being able to organize how to be able to structure unstructured data. In the sample here, you can see how the different notes, all of the different doctor's notes, lab notes, pathology reports, scan documents, we've developed products to be able to understand how this unstructured data can be organized and also being able to be developed into a knowledge representation. We've developed some products called Retina, Redact, and Read that I'll discuss in a second. For starters, Retina is our proprietary OCR that we've developed. Right now, about 60% of patient data is trapped in these scanned records for things like faxes, printed reports, and oftentimes this data is not resurfaced, being able to be used for medical and clinical decisions. Mendel has developed a best-in-class tool for OCR of this medical data. Off-the-shelf solutions in some of the state-of-the-art, including Google, fail to recognize at least one word in every 4 words, even when trained specifically on medical data. In addition, we've developed Redact, which is a proprietary de-identification tool. Mendel, as we know it, is the only company currently in the world that has AI technology capable of passing the HIPAA accuracy threshold, which is a 99% precision. It's able to redact PHI even in the middle of the text without compromising the richness of the document. As seen here, you can be able to see that it understands the inference and the entailment being able to be associated, and the AI's models of being able to understand what's kind of going into the medical literature and not simply just machine readable. What we've done is been able to create a tool that after we've OCR'd and de-identified the data, we've created a search engine. However, the search engine is not your typical Google kind of keyword search. This is a semantic search capable of understanding what is being asked of it. This leads to analytics-ready data, which can be tracked and verified to the source document. So for when you put a search and certain patients are populated, you can see exactly and for what evidence and what reasons that was being decided. This kind of leads to the last and the marquee product, which is called Clues. Typically, being able to aggregate all of the data and being able to use it into an analytics-ready data set takes about 6 months, and you can't really change the endpoints. With what we've been able to do, we've been able to develop an understanding which we can do in a matter of minutes and be able to change those endpoints for regulatory submissions. If you see this graph, what would take 27,000 hours, we're able to do in a matter of 15 minutes. what was taking hundreds of thousands of dollars we're able to do for a few cents, providing a 360-degree view of the longitudinal journey of the patient. You can see here for a visual depiction of how our medical text recognition is vastly superior. This is compared to Google, which right now is considered one of the state of the art on the market, and how much more words and text that we pick up, which allows for our knowledge representation and the ability to understand this on a larger scale for each record, for each patient, over millions and billions of different records. Deloitte recently featured us in a case study, as mentioned. And
Shafiq, you need to wrap up because time's up. But
our current traction is we're integrated at a number of different hospitals, and we've recently repurposed our technology outside of oncology, especially given the recent kind of COVID outbreaks. And I'm happy to be able to answer and take more questions.
Thank you very much for this. And any questions from our judges, mentors? We have Aaron, please go ahead, followed by Gary. Yeah.
Great, good presentation, Shafiq. I have a few questions. I don't think you got into the revenue model. I guess it was, so I'd like to understand what your revenue model is. And also, the other thing I was not clear about is, I know that you're digitizing all of the paper records and all of that, but are you doing anything in terms of, I suppose you are doing predictive analytics on top of that, or are you just a search engine which allows clinicians to query the data? Are you doing actual, and are you looking at other areas besides oncology?
Sure, great questions, and really apologize for any of the glitches. So first, in terms of our revenue model, we just started generating revenue in 2019. We facilitate and see ourselves as sort of an ingredient basis business. So depending on who our end user is, we're working with pharma, we're working with real world data and real world evidence companies, along with individuals that just need to be able to tap into their structured and their OCR and their de-identification capabilities. So we have different models, primarily B2B at the moment, but depending on the end user and how much data, we can be able to kind of plug in to a specific aspect or take over the entire workflow. In regards to, the predictive analytics part, HEOR, health economics and outcome-based research, we've been able to move from retrospective decision-making, seeing how things work in the past and stitching together not just 100 patients, but thousands and tens of thousands to start being able to form things like in silico trials and running virtual trials, looking at more prospective decision-making. Especially in the act of COVID, by being able to look through this, as you're testing hypotheses and seeing things come through the market, you're having a great way to be able to run a double-blind or sometimes a blind study, being able to kind of test these things out in a virtual setting before being exposed to that in a practical situation.
Just a quick follow-up. Are you doing only text or are you also doing images? Because I saw it was only text.
Absolutely images. So part at trying to be able to get data is extremely noisy from tables. There's some challenges in there, but our goal is to surface virtually everything coming from both structured and unstructured, being able to make that semantically queryable and then extracting those endpoints specifically and providing source document verification.
Great, thank you.
Okay, can you tell us a bit more about your IP? And in particular, I guess you said that Google is your big competitor because you're 4x better. So how do you defend yourself against Google? Why would they do this?
So we're patent pending with 2 proprietary patents. I mentioned that my co-founder, Wael Saloom, he was funded by DARPA. He's been doing this for about 15 years. In terms of our kind of, the way that we've approached this is that we try to use off-the-shelf solutions for a lot of our IP. We've integrated with about 15 oncology clinics. And we started with oncology because it's the absolute most complex. And that's how we're now able to repurpose this tech. We've had to build our own OCR. We've had to build our own de-identification. And the reason for our de-identification is we got this third-party validated, which meets and exceeds the HIPAA threshold. So that allows the hospital to share this de-identified information with us because they know that it exceeds kind of the threshold. HIPAA is extremely important. Google's kind of OCR and their off-the-shelf solutions don't meet these thresholds. And that's why we kind of had to refine and build it ourselves and also build our own ontology, which incorporates millions and millions of records that our algorithms and AI models have trained on.
Munja, would like to go ahead with one quick question, I think.
Sure, just one quick question. Thank you for your presentation. Could you please explain how do you contribute to the SDGs?
Absolutely. So in the last slide, I put that number 17, essentially the ability for partnerships. Democratizing AI, as you talk about biases, and I really liked your intro, it's extremely important to be able to start off at a baseline that there's an inherent bias based upon different physicians across the world. My co-founder and CEO, Dr. Karim Galil, he started Mendel with the mission of being able to make basically a Jarvis for medicine. And in terms of the kind of initiatives for the UN, this ability to take different data sources, right now it's extremely biased. And this ability to be able to look from retrospective, as we look prospective, you can be able to narrow down this data, geographical specific, cities to different countries, and be able to kind of make the best decisions. And also we have a team of kind of clinical oncologists that are manually curating and looking through this data to be able to spot any of these blinders, providing for further substantiation.
Thank you very much. Joseph, do you have a quick one or?
Yeah, just real quick, and I apologize here. Nice presentation. As I was going through, as you were going through your presentation, I noticed you've got a ton of capability, a lot of product offerings. So one of the things you want to be careful is not to scatter yourself so thin to where you start to lose focus on the things that you're really good at, right? Sure. But I'm curious, you know, what do you see your targeted kind of audience? It sounds like your customer. It sounds like you guys just started to, hopefully, it sounds like you just started getting some revenue. So you've got pharma, you got R&D departments in each of those pharmaceutical companies. You got clin labs. You've got like companies like IMS. You got data analytics. You got lots of different players there. Where do you plan on focusing to ensure? Because any one of those groups I just mentioned could be a tremendous benefit for your company.
Sure. So Joseph, I really appreciate the ability to, you know, caution against going 5 directions versus going specifically in one. And we've been in stealth mode for the last 18 months. The reason we kind of avoided the full commercialization is really understanding our product and our capabilities. So I demoed a couple and kind of discussed, we do have some other product offerings, but the most important is in a post-COVID universe, basically large data trials and the ability to query this data. Pharma is not selling because they don't have salespeople going to hospitals, right? And for health economics, oftentimes you need to be able to demonstrate validity. So for us, the ability to tap into unstructured data is everything. With our OCR and our de-identification technology, if you miss one of every 4 words, your entire process is broken when you're looking through only structured data. And oftentimes there's other competitors in the space that are doing this, but without AI. So if you change cancer or you change the definition of staging, you can't manually retrospectively abstract that. So there has to be a more sustainable and scalable solution. And we're basically at the helm. If you think of a company like Flatiron, acquired by Roche, we can do this with AI for a fraction of the speed and time with much more substantiated results.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shafiq. It was really good with the answers to all the questions, and pleasure to have you. So we're moving forward with our next pitch right now. So our next pitch is BioTrillion. So BioTrillion, Savan, would you please enable your mic and video? And yes, we can see you. And please share the screen if possible. And also you're on mute. Okay. Just unmute your mic, please, so you can hear. You can, yes.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes, clearly. And just exactly, you can see the screen as well. Slowing. Can you please put in a slide share mode?
Yes. Great. Can everyone see the screen?
Yes, take it away. Good luck.
Wonderful. Thanks, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Savan Devani. I'm the founder and CEO of BioTrillion. We're a little startup looking to advance healthcare through a niche within healthcare called digital biomarkers. We're developing a neurologic digital biomarker platform called BioEngine 4D used to digitally detect developing disease. by innovating at the intersection of computer vision and physiology. We're fundamentally reimagining life sciences through the principles of many sciences. And as a result, we've recruited and built a team with backgrounds across life, data, and computer sciences. My background includes receiving a bachelor's and master's in bioengineering, followed by over a decade in healthcare and M&A, experience across drug, device, and diagnostic technologies before I founded the company. The real catalyst for me founding BioTrillion was my own personal calamity with my mother's stage 4 cancer diagnosis, which made me wake up and realize that there can be a much better way to detect diseases earlier. So we spend less than 1% of our time in a medical setting, yet we're so dependent on it for most basic of our healthcare needs. Consumers' advantage is access to the 99% observational window outside of the medical setting from what we call the life setting. It's during this much larger window of time called the detection phase, where we need solutions to measure whether a potential disease is developing before becoming symptomatic. As we've seen, COVID-19 is accelerating the urgency of detecting disease signs before becoming symptomatic, and this has never been more important for both COVID-19 and all time-sensitive diseases. The best way for healthcare to be accelerated by the digital revolution is for physiologic measures to move from qualitative to quantitative, to then computable and scalable. And we believe digital biomarkers, a niche within healthcare, holds the solution. So what if over 1 billion consumers could be enabled with immediate access to detect health conditions using only the very optical hardware in their smartphone? We've applied the smartphone's camera and other more recently enabling optical hardware to extract extremely subtle and milliscale features in the eyes and face using convolutional neural networks to turn this data into digital biomarkers for both cognitive function and neurologic dysfunction. And today we can now detect drug use and cognitive changes in the brain just using someone's iPhone with our app, of course. Interesting things about AI is that most of it is focused on the macro world or the microscopic world, but there's this world right in the middle called the milli world, where features lie that we can't see with our own vision, but those spatial and temporal features can be more accurately quantified through AI and computer vision. And we believe that that's a massive gap in the market. And those feature sets lie right in the eyes and face. Today, neurologic symptoms can be detected through a pen light test, but this is qualitative. You see this on the left side. It's measuring the pupillary reflex, but it's being assessed by the doctor's own human visual cortex. This is overly qualitative, it's inaccessible, it's expensive, it's clinician dependent, and the scalability is limited for one doctor per every 1,000 patients. We see a future where it's a one-to-one relationship with your device and yourself. It's far more scalable, real-time, affordable, anyone, anytime, anywhere. And we view pupillary responses to be a next-gen vital sign for the neurologic function in the same way you can think of heart rate as the vital sign for cardiovascular function. So I'm going to play a quick demo. It's about 20 seconds, and it shows basically our subject here is going to be given a cognitive load, a math problem, and we're going to quantitatively measure the synaptic activity in his brain increase as he processes this. So he was mentally processing that problem, and you'll see there a spike in his cognitive activity able to be measured right through his eyes and face. And then you'll see a drop the minute he answered the question. I'd love to go over this in more detail with you, but in the interest of time, I'll have to go a little faster. But by being able to measure the synaptic activity, this can be used for measuring changes in cognition quantitatively. So for example, Alzheimer's or dementias, by giving someone the exact same difficulty stimuli and measuring whether that becomes cognitively more hard to perform that problem, you can see whether cognitive decline is occurring on a quantitative basis.
Thank you, Sivan, but actually time is up. And
okay, and I'll wrap up. Thank you. Our investors come from backgrounds across the health and tech communities, such as NVIDIA, One Medical, and others. And our sustainable development goals are aligned with Goal 3 and Goal 10, namely around neurologic health anomalies, the scalability of anyone, anytime, anywhere. 3 billion people own a smartphone. And be happy to answer questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sivan. Any questions? Yeah, we have Aaron, please.
Yeah, hi.
Fascinating.
Yeah, great. Fascinating presentation. Great use of AI. But question is clinical validation as well as how you're training your models, just to keep it very brief.
Okay. So the training data set is a little unconventional. We normally think of as having a data and a label, with the label being really the endpoint. And there's a paradox here because we don't have labels with pupil or eye data. And so what we do is label it to the actual pupil changes and train our convolutional neural networks to be able to detect those changes at a very subtle level. And we use pathophysiologic causality to then piggyback from those changes to cognitive function and neurologic dysfunction based on what we know through causality of the brain.
About clinical validation?
Right. So for clinical validation, so we've started to test this on a low sample set of friends and family. We're able to detect drugs, alcohol, opioids, don't ask how we got, and a few other things, and also changes in cognition. And then our next goal is to run a pilot observational study at about a 50 to 75 population size. It's the next step.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So could you tell us a bit more about kind of accuracy rates or kind of how we know this actually works? And then what would the legal requirements be? Because I'm assuming that if all of a sudden you're kind of giving these sort of health diagnoses, there might be legal implications, and any IP.
Yep. Okay. So I'm going to go to the slide that really serves as a compass for a lot of things, and it's this slide. So we look at healthcare through phases. Most of it's occurring in the interventional phase, which is typically diagnostics and treatment. Our goal is to be right in the middle in the detection, not to be a diagnostic, but to be a pre-diagnostic, almost closer to wellness, and to catalyze an earlier move into the clinical setting for clinically confirmatory diagnosis. So there's a lower regulatory bar, but there's still validation that's required. In terms of IP, we filed our 9th patent just last week. And was there anything else that your question?
Yeah, accuracy.
Accuracy, okay. So it depends on which endpoint we're looking at. So for drugs, alcohol, we're able to do about 85% of the time. Opioids is around 70%. And then the cognitive change, which basically we mark against the strength of cognitive load. So basically the complexity of, for example, a math problem, that's in the 70s right now. So, but we have not gone asymptotic yet because we have a lot more data to still train, and it just takes a little bit more time to get to those higher numbers, and they'll start to get asymptotic. And we've used training data set of over 10,000 images and videos.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think it was actually a great solution. I think we'll be definitely in touch with you for various uses. I mean, with other stuff that we have related to this. Thank you very much. And I think we're moving forward with next, last but definitely least, the startup, and we're actually over time. So going now to the last one, and Casual Lens from the UK. Are you ready? I can see Alejandro is here. Can you please speak to test the audio?
Hello, everyone. Can you see my screen and hear me properly?
We can hear you properly. Can you please share your screen again?
Sorry. There we go. Should work.
Yes, just put on a slideshow mode and we can see it. Please go ahead. You have the 4 minutes. I'll let you know when time's up. And yeah, please.
I'm representing Causal Lens. We're a deep tech startup founded in 2016 and based in London. At Causal Lens, our vision is to predict and optimize the global economy while having a positive impact in our world. Causal Lens helps all kinds of organizations to optimize their processes and reduce waste. For example, we help some logistics companies that want to improve their cargo aircraft capacity factors. And we can do this by simply inputting past cargo data together with some economic indicators. And then this way, the Causal Lens technology makes autonomous predictions of these cargo demand for each point of interest, continuously updating in real time. This helps organizations to optimize their fleet, reducing the number of required cargo aircraft and trucks, leading to large reductions in CO2 and other harmful emissions. There are many more ways in which Causal Lens can help make the world a better place. Our technology can be deployed on the edge. This means that Causal Lens can be fitted into hardware that is not directly connected to the grid, such as turbines in a wind farm, forming an Internet of Things ecosystem that enables them to maximize energy production. This can be further coordinated with predictions for electricity demands to help balance and optimize the electric grid. Causal Lens automates and optimizes this entire process from gathering the raw data all the way to optimizing the business outcomes. However, our technology goes well beyond automating workflows and processes. We are developing a new generation of AI, which we call Causal AI, that enables machines to understand cause and effect. Conventional machine learning approaches fail when making forecasts in the real world in dynamic environments. Conventional machine learning models are static and they do not update as new information arrives. However, these kind of problems are ubiquitous in our day-to-day lives. Also, traditional machine learning models are based on historical correlations. So in this way, models fit past data, but do not look at the true things that drive your target. Causal AI can zero in these true causal drivers without being fooled by any spurious correlations. And unlike black box machine learning models, Causal AI is also inherently explainable. It has the ability to imagine scenarios that have not been encountered in the past. In this way, it allows it to simulate counterfactual worlds and does not only have to rely on the usual training data. As a result, Causal AI is much more accurate than standard state-of-the-art machine learning methods. In a study we recently did, we saw that the accuracy can be up to 42% higher than the current state-of-the-art. Causal Lens offers endless possibilities beyond energy and logistics, as we've seen. Our dynamic causality-infused technology can be used for food production, in this way maximizing agricultural yields, in healthcare, improving hospital operations, and optimizing transport networks, among many other applications. Causal Lens is run by scientists and engineers, the majority holding a PhD in a quantitative field. We are led by our high-achieving founders, who have come from successful backgrounds in both academia and the industry. And we are supported by a distinguished advisory board, which you can see here, and some top institutional investors. If you'd like to find out more about how causal lens technology can be used for good, visit us at causallens.com. Thank you very much for listening. Happy to answer.
Thanks, Alejandro. Thank you very much for the presentation. If you have any questions from our judges and mentors, yeah, we have Aaron. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Alejandro. Question is the causal inference model that you're talking about in AI. Is this a new paradigm? Are you building on top of, let's say, convolutional neural networks or recurrent neural networks? Are you inventing a new? Looks like you are trying to do something brand new. Or are you building on top of what already exists? Is there any academic research to back up what you're trying to do? Do you have any peer-reviewed articles or research? I mean, just trying to understand the basis for what you're trying to do.
Yeah, those are all great questions. So the way we work with this is we look at what there is out there in the open source community. There has been a lot of good research so far in this concept of causal AI. However, what we have found is that it's not quite there yet, right? There've been many good advances, but it's nowhere near where we'd like it to be. So we do use some of what's out there. And then we have a research team that builds on this. And yes, we have some not only some papers that are ready to be published, but also some patents on the area so we do have some IP, but the patents on this specific thing have not yet been.
Do you have a working model which actually does these predictions, or are you still in the process of developing it?
No, absolutely. We work with many clients on this, and they find that it's been very successful for them. And we just try to keep improving. We know we're, as we said, that we've done good steps and proven that we can do better than what's out there so far, but nowhere near the end of the journey.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Pleasure.
Yeah, so good presentation, but a couple of questions about the business model. Who pays, how much, and how many customers do you have? And then relatedly, there are a lot of other companies out there trying to optimize kind of, cargoes and stuff like that, in lots of different countries, different players. How are you better? Who's your main competition and how are you going to beat them?
Right, yeah, many questions. If I forget any, please let me know and I'll get back to it. So we have many customers already in the double digits. And we operate a licensing model where they would pay monthly. It varies a lot in terms of how much they pay, depending on the size of the company. It can go from tens of thousands per year through millions per year. Depends on the size of the company. Sorry, the other question was?
Hold on, let me just follow up on that one really quickly. So how much you guys have in revenue currently? What's the revenue to date?
Yeah, I actually personally, I don't know, but I am not allowed to share that anyway.
Okay, and then the other question was competition. There are a lot of people out there doing the same thing or trying to do the
same. Yeah, sure, absolutely. So there's a few things that distinguish us about the competition. There's also these big players that are now getting into the field that we work in. One of the things is that we built the first fully integrated time series platform to do this, and therefore this is all built from that perspective from scratch. So this is how our clients have told us that we can outperform some of the competition. But also we have this different angle on causality, which other competitors, as far as we know, are not currently doing yet. So this is how we distinguish ourselves and why we found that for the problems that we're working with, we've performed better so far.
Thank you much. Mojan, you have a question? Or this will be the last one for this pitching session? Yeah.
I will ask the same question. How many women do you have in your engineering teams, development team?
I believe we have 5 women in our enterprise.
Out of how many?
Out of over 20. Yeah, it's something we're currently hiring a lot of new recruitees, and we hope to get many more. So please, if you're listening and you're interested, anyone, but also especially any ladies that would like to apply, we're more happy to have your applications.
Happy to help.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Alejandro. Great presentation and great answers also to questions. And I think by this we have reached the end of this pitching session. Thank you very much, everyone. I mean, we're over time as usual, but I cannot stop the Q&A from happening. That's great. And I would really like to maybe ask very quickly our judges and mentors, maybe each one of them to give like a 30 seconds final comment about this session, about any insights they would like to express or anything they felt, or I mean, listening to these startups and asking some questions to these startups. So maybe I would start with Joseph. I mean, Joseph, just like final remarks from your side.
Thanks for inviting me. Absolute pleasure to meet everyone, and nice to see you again, Ahmed. I found all of the pitches incredibly helpful. It's amazing the amount of thought and intelligence that's gone into these ideas, and I'm also very pleased to hear that everyone seems to have IP underway. So congratulations, guys. That's exactly what you should be doing. So good job there. I would encourage all of you to stay very focused. Try not to spread yourselves too thin. And if you're in it to make money, focus on that as well. Some of you seem to be a little more academically oriented than others, but I think on the whole, this is all really good stuff. And I think, Ahmed, just to close it here, these companies represent, I think, this is a really fine representation relative to what you folks are trying to do at the UN from a SDG as well as social impact. So congratulations to that as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Joseph, very much for this. Mojan, just final remarks and comments. And I have to tell you, because you asked about this, actually, we should have had another woman on the judging panel here today, but unfortunately, she couldn't make it. So we're having a perfectly gender balanced panels all the time.
Thank you so much, Ahmed. It was a pleasure to be on this event. And thank you so much, all of you, the speakers, the startups who pitched. I would just have one comment, and I think that it was kind of general for all the pitches. I saw like all the founders were men, and in most of the teams I saw, I think there was 5% participation of women and not many in the engineering. I think that is very important. Of course, for startups, it's most important to, at the beginning, survive and have cash and revenue, but it's very important for you and your long-term business to have more diversity. It's not only about women, of course. I see that you had a great diversity in terms of skills, but diversity in terms of other aspects such as gender, background, race, it's very important, and it will help you in the long term. So please keep that in mind. And of course, it's a higher effort to recruit, but there are so many amazing women already out there that they're already in the market to be hired. So they exist. We have, for example, I don't know, 100,000 women in tech. We have like 10,000 women in AI communities. So please tap into those communities and talents. And yeah, thank you so much, everybody.
Great. Thank you very much. Great comment. Gary, would you like to give just quick 30 seconds final comments, remarks?
Yeah, no, in a lot of ways, I'm going to repeat what I said at the beginning, which is I thought a lot of great ideas, but I think that ultimately you guys just have to remember that judges, whether they be investors or potential clients, are seeing lots of companies that are claiming to do the same thing. And what really differentiates you is if you have any traction or if you have any revenue. Well, I guess that's the best form of traction. So in a lot of cases, those are only coming out in the Q&A as if they were kind of incidental, where you kind of spent most of the pitch talking about the product. I think that you need to kind of make sure that you understand that the traction and whether or not you're actually generating revenue and have real clients, that needs to be almost the core of a presentation, not incidental or something that comes out in the Q&A. But good job.
Yeah. Very good point. Thank you. Okay. And Aaron, last final remarks, please.
Yeah, thank you, Ahmed, and thank you to all the presenters. I think we saw some really great ideas, and all of them aligned in a way with the SDGs. So It was really nice to see that, and also a lot of diversity, not in terms of gender, but in terms of the startups from different regions of the world. But my main takeaway from this to the startups would be that to focus and try to solve one problem in your niche rather than trying to solve a whole broad array, because there's some of them which have very broad applications. But in order to be successful and to really generate revenue, as Gary was saying, you need to be focused, right, on one area and see if you can generate traction quickly, be better than your competitors, differentiate your product, and go after what you're good at. But the last thing is, don't listen to what we are saying, listen to your market and listen to your customers. I think that's the most important thing. I mean, we are just looking at it from our lens, and that may not necessarily, we don't know your customers, we don't know your market. Go with your gut feel, go with your strengths, and I think you'll be successful, and all the best. And one final thing, all of the health-related ones, please look at AI for the focus group on AI for health. That's a plug for what we're doing at some great initiatives there. So please check it out. Thank you again.
Thank you, Aaron. Great points. Thank you, everyone. So, I mean, thanks again, everyone, for the judges, startups, for the pitches, and of course, AI for Health focus group, the ISU and WHO focus group. You can just Google it. It's going to be in the first search results for you. And we'd love to be in touch with everyone. And by the way, before I close, I need to let you know that to be tuned for next week on Thursday, 2nd of July at 4 p.m. CST time, we have our webinar on how to develop accountable AI solutions. And we also have another webinar on Tuesday, the 7th of July at 3:30 p.m. CST time as well on our webinar on AI in aviation. So they are now being shared on the chat. So please stay tuned on that for our next webinars. Thank you very much.